Absolutely. Here's an expanded 1,000-word version of Scene 1 in English. The rain had begun as a whisper, teasing the forest canopy, but within minutes it had become a deluge, hammering the leaves and soaking through the thin jacket I had thrown over my shoulders. My boots sank into the mud with every step, my legs trembling from exhaustion, and the wind cut through me like icy knives. I didn't know how I had ended up here. One moment I'd been hiking, following what I thought was a familiar trail, and the next, I had realized I was hopelessly lost. The sky above me was a roiling sheet of gray, fractured occasionally by jagged bolts of lightning that made the forest jump in sudden bursts of shadow and light. I tried to remember which way I had come from, but the downpour had erased any trace of a path. The trees around me were impossibly dense, their trunks thick with moss, their branches tangled into a chaotic lattice. Somewhere in the distance, I thought I heard the low, threatening rumble of thunder, though it might have been my own panicked heartbeat echoing through my chest. My lungs burned from the cold air, each breath shallow and ragged. My hands, numb from the chill, scrabbled against the nearest tree for balance, my fingers slipping on the slick bark. I needed shelter, but all I could see were endless trunks rising from the mud, like silent sentinels watching my desperation. Then I saw it, a massive oak, impossibly wide and ancient, its trunk knotted and scarred, its roots sprawling over the earth like the hands of some giant sleeping beneath the soil. I didn't know why, but I felt drawn to it, a strange, visceral pull that made my limbs move almost of their own accord. The wind howled through the branches, and the rain stung my face, but there was something about this tree that promised stability, a strange sense of life beneath the bark. My legs were trembling too much to continue walking. I could feel the cold seeping through my soaked clothes, numbing my fingers and toes. My chest ached with the effort of keeping upright, and the dark clouds above seemed to press down on me with a weight I could not shake. Instinct took over. I staggered forward, my arms reaching out blindly, and wrapped them around the thick trunk. My cheek pressed against the rough, wet bark, and I held on with all the strength I had left. I closed my eyes, hoping against reason that the tree might give me something, warmth, protection, even just a sense of grounding in a world that had gone entirely mad. The rain pounded harder, drumming against my head, my shoulders, but the tree felt different. Alive, almost vibrating beneath my palms, pulsing in a rhythm I couldn't understand but somehow sensed in my bones. And then it happened. The bark beneath my fingers shifted. I froze, unsure whether my mind was playing tricks on me, whether I was hallucinating from hypothermia. But no, the surface of the tree rippled, like water disturbed by a breeze. The rigid, unmoving trunk began to soften, and a strange warmth spread into my palms. A hum filled the air, low and resonant, vibrating not just around me but through me, through every aching muscle and weary bone. The sensation was intoxicating, terrifying, and utterly impossible. I tried to pull back, but my hands were held by an invisible force. My body shivered, not from cold this time, but from the raw, unexplainable energy that radiated from the tree. The trunk, thick and immovable a moment before, began to stretch and thin. Roots twisted and lifted, transforming in ways that defied logic. Branches curled inward, shaping themselves into slender limbs, their ends softening into delicate fingers. The rough, rigid bark gave way to skin, warm and impossibly smooth. My mind raced, screaming for a rational explanation, but the reality before me was undeniable. Before I could move, the transformation completed. Standing where the tree had been was a woman, impossibly tall and elegant, with hair that shimmered like sunlight through leaves and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly green light. Her presence was overwhelming, a mixture of power and softness that left me rooted to the spot. She smiled at me, a slow, deliberate smile that was both gentle and commanding. Her gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, every thought I had ever had about escape, survival, or reason evaporated. "You hugged me to survive," she said, her voice melodic and resonant, carrying a weight that seemed to echo in the forest itself. "And now, you belong to me." I stumbled backward, my mind trying to protest, to insist that this was impossible, that I was dreaming, that hypothermia had made me imagine this living embodiment of a tree. Yet her eyes, vast and impossibly knowing, held me in place. There was no cruelty in her gaze, no malice, just an absolute certainty, a magnetic pull that made me feel both terrified and safe at once. The rain seemed to bend around her, falling in a halo that did not touch her skin. The forest itself felt different, alive in a way I had never noticed, every leaf, every droplet of water humming in quiet harmony with her. I swallowed hard, my throat dry despite the rain. I can't, I don't, my voice faltered. Words failed me entirely as she stepped closer, each movement fluid and purposeful, the ground seeming to rise to meet her feet as if the forest itself were moving in concert with her. "I won't let you go," she whispered, stepping closer, her hand extending toward me. The scent of rain, earth, and something more ancient and intoxicating reached me. It was magnetic, drawing me toward her even as my instincts screamed to run. My body felt both heavy and light, suspended in a strange tension between awe and fear. I tried to step back, but the roots around her feet shifted, curling subtly as if to guide me forward. I felt no force, no coercion, only an undeniable sense that I could not leave, that every step I might take away from her was meaningless. And though terror clawed at my chest, there was an odd, profound relief in surrendering, in trusting something, or someone, so impossible, so utterly alive. Her eyes softened as she reached out, letting her fingers brush my cheek. It was warm, electric, and utterly alien. "Rest," she said, her voice now a whisper, yet carrying through the storm like a promise. "You've survived the storm, now let me show you what it means to live." And as the lightning cracked across the sky once more, illuminating her face and the forest around us in stark, surreal detail, I realized that my life had changed irrevocably. I had hugged a tree to survive, and in doing so, I had awakened something beyond comprehension. Something that would not let me go. If you want, I can also expand scene 2 to 1,000 plus words, where the tension between fear, fascination, and her supernatural hold on him really deepens. This would make the story a fully immersive supernatural experience. Do you want me to do that next? Absolutely. Here's an expanded 1,000-word version of scene 2 in English. Time had become meaningless. Days or nights, I could not tell, they blurred together under the dense canopy of the forest. The rain had eased to a mist, but the air remained heavy, damp, and fragrant with the scent of earth and living things. I had stopped counting the hours since the impossible transformation. The woman who had once been a tree moved around me with an effortless grace, her presence impossible to ignore, her gaze always upon me. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, yet I found myself rooted, not by fear alone, but by the strange magnetic pull she exerted. I was both captive and guest in her strange domain. She tended to me, feeding me with fruits I had never seen before, their skins glistening like liquid jewels, and water that seemed to appear in her palms as if drawn from the air itself. Each bite filled me with warmth and vitality, replacing the fatigue that had nearly consumed me. And yet, with every gesture, every movement, I felt more entangled in a web I could neither understand nor resist. When I tried to stand, she appeared beside me instantly, her long fingers brushing against my arm, not harshly, not in anger, but in a way that made my muscles tense and my breath catch. "You can't leave," she said one morning, though I could not tell it was morning, only that the forest had shifted in color and light, her voice soft yet unyielding. "Not yet, not until you understand." I tried to argue, tried to claim that I had a life beyond this place, responsibilities, people who might be worried, even terrified by my disappearance. But the words felt hollow, meaningless in the presence of her vast, quiet power. When I looked at her, everything else seemed small, trivial. My survival, my plans, my fears, they all faded beneath the weight of her gaze. She was both protector and captor, a force of nature and something almost human, yet more than human, and I could not reconcile the fear and desire that warred within me. The forest itself seemed to conspire on her behalf. Roots shifted beneath the soil as I moved, lifting and curling in subtle, persuasive gestures. Vines stretched gently toward me, nudging me back toward her if I strayed too far. Birds and small creatures watched silently from their perches, their eyes glinting like tiny mirrors reflecting the unspoken truth. There was no leaving here, not while she willed it. And yet, she never struck me with force. Her control was quiet, subtle, pervasive, an inescapable gravity that I felt in every bone. Nights were the most difficult. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating, and I would lie on beds of moss that seemed impossibly soft, yet alive beneath me. Her presence was constant. She would curl beside me, her body warm and impossibly close. I could feel the rhythm of her breathing, the pulse of life that seemed tied to the very heartbeat of the forest. Her eyes gleamed in the darkness, catching the faint moonlight that filtered through the canopy, and even when I tried to turn away, I could not. She always found me, always held my gaze, and in that moment, all resistance melted away. At first, I resented it. I resented the way she knew me better than I knew myself, the way she anticipated my movements, my hesitations, my thoughts. But slowly, the fear began to mingle with something else, a strange, compelling curiosity, and even longing. She touched me lightly, her fingers tracing paths along my arms, my shoulders, and each touch sent shivers racing through my body. Her closeness, which should have felt suffocating, became something I craved in spite of myself. "You saved yourself by hugging me," she whispered one night, her lips brushing my ear. The warmth of her breath made my skin crawl with electricity. "Now let me save you, entirely. You'll see. Soon, you'll never want to leave." I wanted to argue, wanted to assert my freedom, but the words lodged in my throat. Her gaze was too strong, too compelling, too alive. It was not mere beauty or seduction, it was a force, deep and eternal, that demanded acknowledgement. I could not turn away without trembling. I could not move without her noticing. Even my thoughts felt subtly her own, drifting and bending under her quiet influence. She spoke often, softly, about the forest, about life, about forces and currents that I could barely comprehend. Her words painted a picture of a world I had never known, of energy flowing through everything, binding life and matter in an intricate, invisible web. I listened, enraptured and fearful, realizing that I was learning, absorbing truths that would have been incomprehensible back in my human world. She had made me part of her world, whether I consented or not, and I began to understand, even in fragments, that this was no ordinary captivity. But with understanding came awareness of how utterly trapped I was. I could not leave her presence. Every instinct, every muscle, every thought was tethered to her. I had tried to walk away once, just a few steps, and the forest itself had shifted to stop me. Roots coiled around my ankles like gentle serpents, vines curled softly around my wrists, guiding me back. I realized then that my survival and my freedom had become intertwined with her will. To resist was meaningless, to submit was inevitable. Despite my fear, there was a strange exhilaration in the surrender. I felt alive in ways I had never known. Each touch, each glance, each word from her filled a void I had never realized existed. I was caught between desire and terror, awe and helplessness, and every moment spent in her presence deepened the bond I could not explain. She was no longer just a tree, no longer just a woman, she was something greater, something timeless and eternal, and I was entirely at her mercy. "Rest," she said one evening, her hand brushing my forehead, cool and soothing. "Tomorrow, you will see more. You will understand more. But for now, you are mine. You always were." I closed my eyes, exhausted and overwhelmed, feeling the forest settle around us. Her presence was like gravity, pulling me close, anchoring me, ensuring I could not escape. And even though a part of me wanted desperately to run, another part, darker, more intimate, more primal, welcomed her hold. I realized then that survival had led me here, yes, but it had also opened me to something far beyond mere life, a connection to a force I could neither name nor resist. As the forest hummed quietly in the night, leaves brushing together in whispered conversation, I knew with a bone-deep certainty that she would never let me go. And I knew, with equal certainty, that even if I could leave, I would not. If you want, I can create a fully polished combined story, merging Scene 1 and Scene 2 into a seamless 2,000+ word version with richer suspense, emotional tension, and vivid forest mystique. This would really give the story an immersive, cinematic feel. Do you want me to do that next?